What's up, everybody? Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be going over the proof varieties and errors on pennies. And there's a pretty good list. It's mostly from the 1950s onward, but there are some wheat cents, a lot of Lincoln Memorial, and then I think there's also some of the 2009 ones we'll be discussing. But there's definitely a lot to go over, so we'll get right into it. I've got photos of these errors. I'll explain them as best I can, and then we'll talk about the price points at different ranges. Is this a proof 67 versus a proof 65, things like that. So can't wait to get into it. Let's check it out. And here's our first of the proof Lincoln penny errors. This one is a wheat penny, and it's going to be a double die on the lettering, especially in God We Trust. You can see the doubling in the inside of the O. There's a little bit of separation. When you look over into the trust, there's also going to be on the outside of the R, on the outside of a T, it's like almost to the right and then a slight tilt. And this one's going to be worth between $150 and $600. Remember, these are proof coins, so it's more likely that they're going to be found in proof sets as opposed to in any circulation environment, so that's why they're in better condition. 1953, there's also a double die obverse, and the best way to look for it is in the date, and I think it's clearest on the inside loop of the 9 as well as to the right of the 1. There's, a clear extra 1 protruding. Proof 63, this is $30. Proof 65, $90. Proof 67, $200. So definitely a nice find. There's also 2 re-engraved errors where they went back and re-engraved the die, and it's a sharp looking re-engraving on Lincoln's kind of front, I guess his torso or his chest, and yeah, you'll be able to see a sharp protrusion, or not really protrusion, I think it's more just a sharp kind of line that looks like it should be in continuation with his chest line. This one is worth between $75 and $350, and then there's also a second re-engraving that's even sharper, runs longer along it, and that's slightly more valuable, $70 to $400. So yeah, both of these you just want to check, make sure that there's not this kind of sharpness in his chest area. 1955, we have a double die obverse and double die reverse. There's on the front of the coin, there's going to be this 9 in the 1955 with a spread on the right side of it. It's not as evident in the other lettering, though a little bit here on this 5. And then on the back, for E pluribus unum, you can see a little bit of doubling. There's like a line in the L. There's also some extra thickness and somewhat of separation in the E. And this is going to be worth maybe $100 in proof 63, $200 in proof 65, and $400 in proof 67. Then we get to 1956. This one, double die obverse, you want to look in the Liberty. It's going to look like it's quite extra thick, and also having a little bit of a spread kind of along the left side of the letters. Significant though, extra thickness, not a normal. If you have 2 side by side, you can see that this is significantly larger, and the values on this proof 65 are $50 and proof 67 is $125. There's also a double die reverse error on the 1956 proof penny, and this one is a little bit challenging to see here, but there's some other photos where it's more clear. But the bottoms, you're going to look for the spread in the bottoms of the letters. So here you can see a little bit in that bottom of the E. Looks like there's a slight bar, as well as in the bottom in this continuation of the C. And then let's see, in this S, it's not as clear here, but you're going to be wanting to look in the bottom of the letters here. And this can be anywhere from 60 to 150 in the more circulated or dinged up proofs, with 550 as the value for a nice proof 67 example. In 1960, we get to our first memorial proof error, and this is a triple die obverse, and the best place to look for it is on the inside of the 0 and the inside of the 9 here. And there's a lot of errors that goes. There's also kind of the top in the 6, just differences, and yeah, tripling. $150 for a 65 grade, and 67 will bring about $250. There's also a double die obverse where it's more in, it's still in the 6 and the 0, but it's more in the 0, and then there's also more of a doubling, I think, in the left part of the 1 in 1960. And this is a $275 to $400 coin, and it's the large date over the small date, which accounts for the error that we see. Also in 1960, there's a small over large, and this one is a little clearer. The small, not covering up all of the lettering that well. There's going to be extra bars in the E, strong separation there, also in the B, and then when we look to the date, it's going to be a little clearer in terms of having, a 9 over a larger 9 in the back, a 1 that's also to the left spreading over the 1. Really, the place to look for all of these is in the 1960, and this also has similar values, $275 to $450. Lastly, there's the 1960 double die reverse, and you're going to want to look for this. There's going to be some split serifs in the N, a little bit of a separation in the E, top of the E, bottom of the E, and then also in the Lincoln Memorial reverse, there's a spread up top. It'll look like there's two buildings. This doesn't do a great job of showing it. I think it's easier to look for it in the cent. Other people think it's easier to look for in the building, but it's going to be $50 for proof 65 and $300 for proof 67. And then 1962, there's also a double die reverse. This one you can still see in the cent. You can see, similar to before, there's a little bit of different bars in the E, some slight separation on the notches of the T and the N, and then there's also a little stronger spread in the FG, which is to the bottom right of the memorial building, and this will cost between $60 and $350. For 1963, the proof penny, there's also, again, a similar double die reverse where you can see a lot of the spreading in the cent. This is a little bit stronger in terms of having more separated bars, but then there's also the added benefit of being able to search for it in America on a lot of the bottom right notches. On the bottom right letters, you will see some notches. Proof 67 is $175. Proof 68 is $350. So interesting that there's not more circulated or just lower grade price history, but definitely a good find to make. Then we get to the 1968S proof double die obverse, and you're going to see this especially in the Liberty. You can see a little bit of a spread, a little bit of a notch in the 1 and the 6, but I think the best place to look for it's in the Liberty, and especially in the I. There's just two clear I's that are separate from each other, a little bit of notching down there with the R, but I think that's the best place is in the I. This is expensive, $100 for proof 65 and $850 for proof 67 cameo. The cameos are going to add a lot of value all across the board, and so will deep cameos. People always like that contrast on the pennies, so it'll kind of elevate any value that we have. Then we have some 1970. This did not escape having errors. There's the left to right weakening of Liberty will be present on any small date 1970 S penny. It'll also have a 1970 date where the 7 and the 0 appear to have the same kind of top, where the top of the letter ends is going to be the same, whereas for the large date, it's going to have the 0 be higher than the 7. So that's just something interesting, as an additional marker. I think, somebody online says that it's better to check for the left to right weakening. I always thought it was easier just to check the 70 versus the where the tops are. This is $40 to $80, so it's not as big of a find, but potentially more doable. There's also a double die obverse on the large date where it looks like a lot of extra thickness on the 9 and the 7, but you can see a little bit of separation there in the 7, and then the Liberty is just extremely, if you compare it to another one, extremely doubled with thickness, though it's not as much of a clear spread, though maybe a little bit there in the B. This is $225 in proof 65 and $550 in proof 67. There's also a doubling where it's more of just a clear spread along the right side of the S, the top of the U, in the E, in the W, and this one's proof 65 is $150 and proof 67 is $250. So definitely, not an insignificant coin. There's a lot to look for on the 1970S. There's also a triple die obverse, and this one is a little bit tougher to see, but there's some spreading in the 0 in the top of the 7 there, a little bit of a notch in the I, as well as continued extra thickness throughout the Liberty. Proof 65 is $55 and proof 67 is $175. And then we get to 1971S. This one is a little more expensive, pretty clear if you have it. It's especially known in the In God We Trust. Just lots of bars all throughout the lettering there. Kind of reminds me of 1969 S, except not quite as doubled. And then same thing in the Liberty, just lots of clear spreading, easier to detect for sure. $300 in Proof 63, $500 for Proof 65, and $1,500 for Proof 67 Deep Cameo. Then 1972, S also has a double die obverse. We can see it in the inside loops of the B, in the E, and then a little bit over here in the trust, kind of at the bottom of the T, double bars, double, spreading in the U. And this is also expensive. $275 for Proof 63, $750 for Proof 65, $1750 for Proof 67. I know some people collect all the 1972 penny errors. There's a lot of them, and this would probably be one of the tougher ones to get. And then there's also a 1990, this is probably the most expensive one, 1990 no S. This only applies for proof coins. There's plenty of no S coins, but if it's proof, they're all supposed to be made with the S at the San Francisco Mint, and some, a small number forgot to have that S added, and they're worth $2,500 for Proof 65, $3,500 for Proof 67, and $5,000 for Proof 69. Quite expensive, and definitely something to look for every once in a while. Somebody finds one, and it's very exciting. There's also some close AM errors. The normal, what you were supposed to have is this spread AM where they do not touch on the proof coin, but there's a few of them from 1998 and 1999 where they touch, and this is, just something to look for. On the business strike, it's inverted. You want to look for the wide AM, but this is going to be worth $125 to $350, and it's more possible to get like a Proof 69 because these are more recent and the quality is a little bit better. We'll see the same trend on the 1999 Proof Penny, as I mentioned, $500 to $200 for that find. Again, the right isn't going to be worth anything, unless maybe it's a Proof 70. Then our last coin of the day is the Proof Penny, the Formative Years Double Die Reverse. And for this one, we're going to be looking in the fingers, and we're going to see that here there's a spread as another finger that's kind of on the top of the hand that almost extends into the book. This one is worth between $100 and $200, but it looks like there's a sixth finger that's above the pointer finger that will extend into the book, and it's best to have a regular one side by side so that you can make the comparison, but definitely a good error to close this out and be looking for. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and get in touch with me on my website, treasuretown.yt.com, Facebook, TreasureTown, Instagram @TreasureTownYT, or Twitter @TreasureTown_YT, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my future vids.